Legends, welcome back to Here's Rodder's Reviews. We're going to get into another little episode from Transformers Season 2. Transformers Generation 1. The season of the Transformers. My personal favourite in all of them. Season 1 was strong as well, but I think Transformers really did hit their pace in Season 2 and unfortunately didn't continue on much after Season 2, but we'll get to that in due course. This episode is called The Core, and again the Decepticons have a new plan to harness energy to return to Cybertron and destroy the Autobots. In this one they have decided they're going to try and tap the molten core of the planet Earth. But very swiftly into the episode we discover that the drilling to the core is potentially going to split the surface of the planet. Megatron's not worried about that in the slightest, which is something I always enjoyed about the character of Megatron, the original Megatron. Didn't really follow much into later versions of Megatron, although it may do at some point. But in Generation 1, to kind of skip ahead a little bit, I enjoyed Megatron far more than Galvatron, because Galvatron was an insane character, but Megatron, as you see in this episode, if he's going to decide to destroy the planet, he's going to do it for the sheer fact of doing it. He's fully clocked in the mind, and if he decides to do it, he's going to do it. And whereas if Galvatron come up with the same thing, he's not all there. It just seems more dangerous coming from Megatron, because he is in full control of his emotions at all times. But to get back to this episode, the Constructicons save the Decepticons to start from the first rupture of the Earth's surface, and we'll cut from there to some of the Autobots. Sunstreaker, Jazz, a couple of the other ones are out for a drive, and they end up in a dry riverbed, and they're like, there should be a river here. So they go to investigate why the river's dried up, and they discover that the river has been diverted into a canyon, and this is all set up to a water cooling mechanism for the drill that's going to the core. They see a couple of the Constructicons there, and they raise the alarm. But before they can get to the Autobot headquarters and get the rest of the Autobots involved, as usual, Laserbeak has been out in patrol, has seen the Autobots, has reported this back to Megatron. The Autobots try and fight the Decepticons. They turn up and they're faced off with Devastator. Now, Devastator, at this point in the series, is the only combiner, and the Autobots are going to be no match against Devastator on their own. But they come up with a plan to use these little chips, connect them to all the separate Constructicons, and when they combine on the Devastator, it's like an override chip, and they can hit a button, bring Devastator under the control of the Autobots. But as usual, Megatron's like 20 steps ahead of the Autobots whenever they're coming up with their plans, and there's a point in the episode where the Autobots get control of Devastator. He fights on their side, caves in the Decepticons into where the drill's at underground, inside like a big massive cavern. There's a cave entrance in here. The drill's down there, and they get caved in by Devastator, and Devastator returns to Autobot headquarters with the Autobots. But Megatron, being ahead of the whole thing, he has a space bridge hidden inside, along with a lot of stored water. So once the Autobots leave, they manage to freeze the waterfall and the river using one of Ironhide's devices, and they think, okay, Megatron's not going to be able to drill if the water is frozen, so they clear off, take Devastator with them, and when they go, Megatron reveals his plans to the rest of the Decepticons. One, if the Earth shatters, I can get off the planet Earth back to Cybertron with my Decepticons. The Autobots can stay on Earth, get destroyed with everybody else. We have enough stored water here. He's got a whole mechanism thing set up, and it's just pouring water constantly onto the drill. They get going again. And the ace in the deck is also ahead of the Devastator control that the Autobots have, and he's developed a countermeasure. Pretty much, he's got a little button as well, and at any point he can hit that there, bring Devastator back under control of the Decepticons. This idea was come up by Chip Chase, this override thing, the wee guy in the wheelchair. So it's good to see him getting a wee bit of the foreground again in the episode. He kind of comes in and out of the series quite a bit. The Autobots aren't long in discovering the drilling has started again. The Earth is starting to have tremors, like the ground's splitting apart, the whole 9 yards. So they come back to face off against the Decepticons one more time, thinking they're going to be ahead, saying, we have Devastator now, let's kick some butt, and they go. And of course Megatron pops up with his little button, presses it, and brings Devastator back under their control. So Devastator turns in the Autobots once more, and Wheeljack is screwing about with his control, but Chip tries to warn him, you need to be really careful here, because if you don't do this right, you could destroy or screw up Devastator's logic center. So that does happen. Devastator goes absolutely crazy. He ends up fighting both the Decepticons and the Autobots, and all hell breaks loose at this point. And the Earth is in its final moments, essentially coming up to the end of this episode. But when Megatron decides, okay, he decides, right, we're going to pull the plug, hit the space bridge to escape. They go up this elevator shaft thing, and Devastator sees him leaving, and instead of him following him that way, he just blasts through the roof above him. But in the cavern above them is where the space bridge is at. So when the Decepticons are trying to make their escape to the space bridge, Devastator just explodes out from the center of it, destroys that. So everybody's screwed now at this point, and we get one of those tasty moments that very rarely happens. Megatron is insane. Well, not insane. He is, again, he's well in control of his faculties. He knows what he's doing. But when they're in that situation, he's not that stupid that he's going to keep fighting the bat out. He's just, we need to stop this drill at this point. If we don't stop the drill, the Earth's going to be destroyed. The Decepticons and the Autobots are going down, and at this point, Wheeljack pops up out of the ground where Devastator destroyed the space bridge, and we just came to the same, conclusion. So it was one of these moments where the Autobots and Decepticons have to join forces. I love that in these episodes. Doesn't happen that often in the Transformers. Only a couple of times that I can recall. But Transformers was always pretty much, Generation 1 was basically a 20 to 25 minute toy advertisement. Basically, it's good versus evil, fighting. Good always comes out on top, but there's that rare occasion where everybody's screwed and good and evil has to, join forces to get it sorted. The only way they can stop this drill is with the help of Devastator, but he's gone off and won because his his whole logic center's been screwed up because of these two controllers that are battling within him, kind of thing. So they need a part from Megatron to fix one of the controllers to bring Devastator back in line. And Megatron's like, I do this for the good of my Decepticons, only for the good of my Decepticons, and it grieves me that you may benefit from this too. This is to the Autobots. So they do eventually get Devastator under control, and he disappears down the shaft, heading towards the core to get to the actual tip of the drill to stop it, which he does manage to do. And there's a huge explosion. The whole thing caves in around it. We think Devastator's been destroyed at this point. Megatron, as usual at the end of most of these episodes, his retreat, takes out the whole army, off they go. Then Devastator reappears on the surface, and he's like, what have you done to the almighty Megatron? And Chip is like, he's off saving his own neck, sort of a thing. He's left you to it. He's just turned his back on you. Do you really want to serve a leader like that? And Devastator is kind of like, Megatron wouldn't do that sort of thing. You haven't heard the last of the mighty Megatron. And he flies out after the Decepticons, and we get a moment at the end where Chip is kind of, he's all down, he's got his head in his hand, and Optimus Prime's like, what's wrong? And Chip is like, was kind of hoping that Devastator would have joined the Autobots for real, but maybe that's just a stupid dream. And then Prime has one of those Optimus Prime moments that we all adored as children growing up, and the final line he says in this episode is, Chip, hold on to your dreams. The future is built on dreams. Hold on. I love it, guys. I'm a big kid. I sat there with a dopey big grin on my face the entire way through that there. It took me right back to, rushing home from school in the mid-80s. Transformers was 85, I want to say. Like, I wasn't that old when it came out. 86, this episode came out. So I was what? Gosh, I was born in 79. Yeah, I'm an old fart. That's official. But, I remember landing home from school, sitting down, enjoying Transformers, and just there tonight watching this episode just took me right back. It is something I need to do more often, to sit down and enjoy some of these older cartoons. So you're going to get a lot more of this nonsense on the review channel, whether you like it or not.